All BTS members are in the military as of this Tuesday, raising much anticipation about their future return as a group on the K-pop stage as early as June 2025. Meanwhile, on screens nationwide, a Korean production about a painful chapter in the country's modern history has both the young and old flocking to local theatres. Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sun-hee. Today we touch upon the latest on K-entertainment, starting off with news about all BTS members now serving their country. For this, I have Jeff Benjamin live on the line. Jeff, as always, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Right, Jeff, as I mentioned in the short clip, as of this Tuesday, with the enlistment, I believe, of Jimin and Jungkook, all BTS members, all 7 of them, are now serving their country. How does their absence, Jeff, look to affect the K-pop industry, do you think?
You know, it's a day that I think a lot of people in the industry as music fans, as just general music fans, we're not looking to, but it inevitably has come. And I really do think that I don't think, you know, sometimes they say you don't know what you got until it's gone. And I think BTS's absence, right, it's going to highlight, I think, really how far they came. The types of achievements and accomplishments that BTS was able to create, not just as a group, but also as individuals. It's something that really has not been able to be recreated from, you know, arguably really any outside country in that same way when it comes to a group and the individuals. It's kind of it's going to be a big gap to fill, as they say, and I think it's going to really just show just kind of what level BTS was at versus, you know, when you think about, you know, where else other artists in the industry are, etc. I think it's really just going to show just really, again, how far and how much accomplished this group had done, both as a group and as individual solo artists.
Right, and speaking about that, Jeff, like you mentioned, prior to their enlistment, a number of BTS members partook in solo projects. Could you highlight a couple of them for us, and how do you assess these solo endeavors?
Yeah, so once again, you know, BTS, all of these members who have put out solo projects, you're just not seeing the same groups, other groups of their caliber, being able to hit the accomplishments that they're being able to hit, especially on that global level. All the different members put out their different solo projects, and more than anything, you know, of course, there were huge records broken. Just the other week, Jungkook, with his golden solo album, was able to break the record for largest selling soloist K-pop album. I believe in a week's time, he had the highest charting album on the Billboard 200 chart. But I think more than the records, more than that, we really got to learn about the members individually themselves. We're kind of seeing clips right now of just all their different musical styles, whether this is RM's great collaboration with Anderson .Paak and the eclectic album he had, which we named the number 1 K-pop album of 2022 last year. I love RM's Indigo album. But then, you know, we see Jimin's powerful performance solo record, or V right here with his, oh, that's not V actually, but August D, Suga's album that got very personal, intricate hip hop in that way, or V with his solo album that showcased his jazz side. There were so many special things that we got to see from these individual artists, and I think it's so special that while, yes, we do have this unfortunate break that's happening right now, not as much music will be coming out, we did really get these special photographs and these kind of captures of time from these guys, so that we not only remember what BTS did as a group, but we also remember what they shared with us as the individuals that they are too.
Right, indeed. Now, Jeff, in the meantime, though, there are hopes, very, very high hopes, that BTS will be able to join us soon as perhaps in the summer of 2025 as a group after they serve their military. What are your prospects regarding the second chapter, so to speak, of their performance as a group?
Yeah, if any group can defy expectations and make a huge comeback, it would be BTS. And I think they're set up for success in this way. And I give a lot of that credit to the fact that they have re-signed their contract several times with HYBE's Big Hit Music at this point. There are plans for them to continue after each member finishes his required enlistment and military service. So there isn't the same sense that you sometimes see with not just K-pop groups, but with pop groups at large, that many a times they need, to consider other agencies that certain members have signed with or different managers or agents. Instead, BTS is keeping everything at the home base. So the prospects of them coming back, I think, are very likely because they do have that core team that's been working with them from the beginning, still looking out for them, still kind of pushing them in that same way. And also, we've seen how well BTS has sort of navigated this second chapter so far already. They've done really great at preparing contents for fans to be able to see while they're out. We've been able to see all the different things that they're doing, photo shoots, songs, new music. I think there's still surprises on the way. So they've done a really good job at kind of not making it feel so intimidating as a break like that.
Right, so I suppose for BTS, it's going to be absence making the heart grow fonder. But in the meantime, though, Jeff, what are some ways that other K-pop acts could perhaps work to fill the void, for now, left by BTS?
Well, and I think that's almost kind of the problem in the thinking that I'm kind of seeing in the industry is that in the media side, in the industry side, there's so much of this, I'm always being asked who's the next BTS. And I think that's kind of the issue is that BTS didn't come up and say they're the next so-and-so or they're replacing someone. If you think about it, BTS debuted less than 2 years after One Direction was sort of taking over the world as the world's favorite boy band at the time. There is not really a place or, you don't need to fall in line and follow someone and do the same thing they did. I think the right artists and the artists who will break out and able to create their own history of their own are the ones who don't necessarily need to follow history or feel like they need to follow in footsteps beforehand, but instead create their own path, create their own history. So it's an interesting question. I know why the question comes up a lot, but I think we're not going to see a group kind of hit those same, impacts and milestones as BTS until I think we, release this idea that anyone needs to try to follow them. I always just encourage artists to be themselves, follow your own path,
Right, I would have to agree with you there. And talking about following your own path, Jeff, a number of K-pop companies are seeking to establish base in the U.S. in search of new talent. What are your thoughts regarding these endeavors?
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I think it's a really interesting thing, right? Especially when we're looking at BTS. In that segment earlier in the program right before this, there was all this talk of BTS's accomplishments. And when you've had something that successful and someone who's just made such an iconic career in and of themselves, you have to get innovative with how you approach it next. And I think that's why we're seeing those leaders like JYP Entertainment teaming up with Republic Records, another the top record label year over year tends to be in the US, come together for a global American girl group in that way. I've really liked what they've put out so far. Vicha, they announced that their official debut is coming at the top of next year. HYBE and Geffen Records also put out a project, a more internationally based group in that way. So we're seeing the innovations happening. There are ways that these companies, I think, are looking to try to see, okay, well, if we can't recreate that history or try to fill these voids, what have you, making new history is an admirable goal. And I'm so excited to kind of see what comes of all this.
So am I, Jeff. All right, then, thank you so much for the update on the latest with regard to K-pop, that is. See you soon, Jeff.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Right, well, up next, we touch upon a screen production here that has been raking in rave reviews. And for this, I have Jason Bechaves with me here in the studio. Jason, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, as always.
Right, now, for the sake of our viewers, like myself, who have yet to watch 12/12 The Day, could we start off with a brief synopsis?
Yeah, absolutely. It's based on the military coup d'etat that took place on December 12th, 1979. It focuses on this character. It focuses on a couple of characters. One being this character called Hwang Chun-doo-kwang, played by Hwang Jong-min. This is the Chun-doo-won character. And in the film, it focuses on how he leads this investigation into the assassination of Park Chung-hee, who was shot in October of 1979. And you see how he basically tries to consolidate his power and position himself to stage this military coup. And then you have this, the head of the kind of military, the garrison in Seoul, played by Jung Woo-sung. And so he tries to thwart the general's plan. So that's essentially the main narrative of the film. And then you have all these kind of other characters as well, but I think one of the reasons it works so well actually is because it focuses on these two central characters, because I was a little bit worried going in that it might just get a bit too convoluted, and that's not the case. It's directed by Kim Sung-soo, who's been he's an established filmmaker in Korea. He's made films such as Beat, starring Jung Woo-sung. He also has helmed other films, including Asura, starring Jung Woo-sung and Hwan Jong-min. So, and a number of other movies, including The Flu. But this is by far his biggest hit.
Well, it's gathering quite a bit of a fan base here in the country, Jason. What do you suppose is fueling the popularity behind this particular production?
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it could do quite well, but I've been surprised by how well the film has been received. I think that there's a few reasons. I mean, it's worth mentioning, and it's important to mention that it is a very well-made film. It's, you know, it's riveting to watch. You know the end, what's going to happen at the end of the film, because it is sadly, you know, a portrayal of a tragic chapter in Korea's history. So, but you know, that's true of a film like Memories of Murder as well, which is set in the 80s, and viewers knew what happened at the end of the movie and that they weren't able to catch the serial killer. But I think also what's particularly commendable about this film is the way it kind of humanizes events. Now, what I mean by that is it doesn't kind of make it overly sentimental, and you've got Korean films that such as Taxi Driver and also The Attorney as well, which focus on one character. These are films set in the 1980s, but this film focuses on choices. It focuses on decisions that these people made, and I think for me that's what was really striking about the film, and it kind of draws you in because these decisions would have a lasting impact on history. So even though you've got these, you know, you've got the Chun-doo-won character he's essentially the villainous character in the movie, but the film feels familiar. It doesn't feel detached from reality, and I think its strength is the way it focuses on these decisions, and we all have to make decisions, sometimes in the heat of the moment, and that's what these characters do, and you see what happens as a result and how it affects Korea's history. And I think also it's attracting both younger audiences and older audiences.
That's actually what I was going to ask you right now. I mean, I understand why senior citizens would be interested in the movie. They've lived a part of that event as well. But why is it that the young Koreans are equally as interested in this particular film?
Yeah, well, I've been talking to my students about this. So, you know, this is the kind of the Gen Z generation, and I think the younger viewers are just less familiar with the history, and I think it's interesting to kind of draw their reactions, and many of them feel very, very angry. They feel somewhat shaken by the film, actually, because they're not, you know, they didn't experience it like their parents did or their grandparents. So I think it's almost like a bit of a history lesson for the younger generation, and I think that's a really good thing. I mean, one of the things I've admired about Korean films over the years is the way they portray culture and the complexities of not just the culture but the history. You know, I mentioned Memories of Murder earlier. You've also got films like A Taxi Driver, and they all tackle history in different ways, and this film is true as well. I've mentioned one of the ways in which you can differentiate it from the other features that tackle you know, different areas of Korean history. And I think, you know, the younger audience is less kind of knowledgeable about this period, and they're learning a lot by watching this film. And I think it's a film that they can go and watch with their parents. And you look at the films that have historically done very well in Korea. It's these films that attract both younger, you know, and older audiences, kind of cross-generational. You know, films like Ode to My Father as well, you know, where you'd hear stories of kind of granddaughters going with their grandparents to watch the film. And I think that's also perhaps true here as well. It appeals to both the young and old, and for different reasons.
And that all being said, Jason, do you see this particular production as becoming perhaps the second film this year to hit the 10 million mark in terms of ticket sales?
Yeah, I hope so. It's a bit premature to say. I mean, it's slowing down a little bit in terms of the momentum. I mean, it's worth noting here that 10 million admissions is this kind of mega hit kind of benchmark, and any film that goes over it is basically, you know, seen as an extremely popular film. It could well do, I hope so. It's looking that way. It's still, in terms of reservations, I mean, it's well over 7 million admissions at this point. There's not much in the way of competition going forward, although there are one or two films released over the Christmas period. But I think this film will continue to be popular right through to the end of the year and early next year. So yes, I do think it will hit 10 million admissions.
Quite a number of critics, Jason, have been applauding Hwang Jung-min's performance in this particular film. What are your thoughts regarding his acting here? Yeah,
I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I mean, Hwang Jung-min is an actor who I've long admired. He's been in films such as, you know, these iconic films, A Bittersweet Life, A Good Lawyer's Wife. He's just been around for decades almost, right? So, and I think going back to an earlier point I made, there's a scene at the end of the film where his character successfully stages this military coup, and it's in this kind of almost like, yeah, in this bathroom, and it's a public restroom, I can't remember, but I think it hits him what he's done. And for me, that was a really profound moment, because you realise he's actually human, right? He's not this character out of... It is a film, of course, and there are things that, I mean, historians will probably debate whether how accurate it is or how inaccurate it is, but, and so there are things in the film that didn't really happen. But his character does feel very, very real, and I commend him for his performance. It is really powerful, it is intense, and I think there is a danger to kind of overcook a performance where you kind of put a lot of energy into it. That's not really true here. There's certainly moments where where his character does get quite intense, as I said, but at the same time it does feel very real and familiar. So. And there was that moment at the end of the film, as I just said, that I think really struck me as really profound.
I have to watch it. I haven't yet watched it. I'm saving it for Christmas. Jason, that being said, what do you suppose are the broader implications of the popularity of this particular production?
Well, I mean, for one, it's an original film, so it's not based on IP, so intellectual property. And last year, if you look at the films that did really well, and even earlier this year with the Roundup, they're films either sequels or based on, you know, existing intellectual property. This year, what we're seeing is films that are actually kind of original movies. So The Smugglers is a good example of that. I mean, The Roundup did really well, which is a sequel. There's also Concrete Utopia, which is based on a webtoon, but it's not a sequel that is being made into a kind of whole franchise. There's a sequel that's already been made, and that they've made a series as well. But I think, yeah, looking at the animation, the animated films that have done really well this year, Elemental, which is not a Korean film, of course, but the Japanese animes as well. So it's just, yeah, I think there is a real hunger for kind of original films, and so yes, many of them are based on, you know, comics or webtoons, but I think, you know, compared to last year where it was just sequel after sequel after sequel, I think, and the fact that this film does so well, it's not a second part or a third part, I think is really encouraging for the industry. It's been a really tough year. I can't stress enough how tough it has been for the Korean industry. I mean, it's been a bit surreal because on the one hand, you've got Korean content doing so well overseas, following the success of Parasite and of course Squid Game. And, you know, it's made me very busy, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to be in the position I'm in, talking about the popularity and the hunger, the appetite for Korean content. But domestically, it has been a very, very challenging and difficult year. You know, only, I think this is this film, 12/12 The Day, Sole-Bomb is the Korean title. It is the 6th film to break even this year. And we only have a handful of films released over Christmas and New Year, which I think is reflective of how difficult the market is right now.
And tell us a bit more about the films we can look forward to this particular season.
Okay, so we've got Noryang, which is the new film by Kim Han-min. He made Roaring Currents, which is this film based on the famous Admiral Lee Sun-shin. So this is the 3rd film in that kind of series based on the famous Admiral. The first film did really, really well. Sold over 17 million tickets. So this is the 3rd film of the series. I think it's destined to do well, and given the success of 12/12 The Day, I think potentially it could perform quite well, but we'll have to wait and see.
Right.
And there's also Alienoid Part 2. So Alienoid was a film directed by Choi Dong-hun. It didn't, in fact, it bombed. It was basically a film split into 2 parts. And what I'm hoping is, because I thought the first part was pretty good, but it is science fiction, and science fiction has been a tough sell for Korean audiences in cinemas. Science fiction is not really a genre that's worked so well in Korean content, although it's made there have been some really interesting examples. Save the Green Planet is a classic, but you know, when it comes to actually making these films work for Korean audiences, many of them have flopped, including Alienoid Part 1. So what I'm hoping is that people watch Alienoid Part 1 on streaming platforms and then want to see the second part in the cinema, which is, I think it's being released in January. So there are 2 films to look forward to.
Right, I see. All right, Jason, as always, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
No worries, thank you for having me.
Right, and as Jason pointed out, it's December 12th here in Korea. For those of you who have yet to watch 12/12 The Day, do watch it this coming weekend then. Well, that is all for this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.